Perfect. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Thank you everybody for joining us this evening. I feel like I know everybody already since we had some time to chat. So welcome Lynn and Marilyn and Jennifer. We may have some others that are joining us, but we're here tonight to talk to you about our new Master of Studies in Law program with a focus in human resources. We were going to launch the program in fall 2020, but as we know, we have a pandemic going on, so we were delayed, and we're actually launching the program in winter 2021, and we'll be bringing our first class in January, so we're very excited. I would say that in regards to the presentation, this really is very informal. This is really for you. This is your opportunity to ask questions that you might have. Hopefully I'll cover a lot of information this evening. As I indicated, Dean Cancelosi is here. She has some great information to share with you about the courses that are part of the program. And with that being said, we'll go ahead and get started. We'll do some welcome and introductions really quickly. We'll talk about the role of a human resources, and basically, I just want to touch upon, how has that role changed now that we're in this pandemic and things are changing in organizations and companies. Why you should consider a Master of Studies in Law at Wayne State. I'll give you a preview of the program curriculum. We'll talk about some different course information. I'll also cover the admission standards and the application process. And we'll talk about the program costs and the different funding opportunities that would be available to you as an applicant. And certainly we'll open the floor for questions and answers. But as I mentioned before, this is very informal. Please don't hesitate to stop while we're in the middle of a presentation and ask your question. So, all right, so there you can see my mug. I don't look anything like that right now. But I'm the director of our Non-J.D programs in the law school, and that includes the MSL program. It also includes our Master of Laws program, which is the LLM for any J.D student who wants to come back and specialize in a particular area. And it also includes our new minor in law program that we introduced here at Wayne State University. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Dean Cancelosi so she can go ahead and introduce herself.
Thank you. So Susan, unless you're actually in my class, and in which case then it's Professor Cancelosi usually, but still, Susan in this context, please. So I'm the Senior Associate Dean of the Law School, but when I'm not in that role, then I'm one of the faculty members at the law school. And probably here, the most important thing is that actually I'm one of the faculty who will be teaching in the MSL program, not the kind of core courses, but the employee benefits kind of specialty course, because that is what I did in practice for about 14 years before I went into academia. And then I've been at Wayne State for 15 years. And when I'm not being the Senior Associate Dean, I teach employee benefits and elder law and taxation and wills and trusts. But a lot of my background, obviously, because of the HR or the employee benefits, is very much HR focused. So I worked in a Fortune 100 company as their benefits counsel, working with the HR department day in, day out. I worked for a big HR consulting firm and one of the big accounting firms, in addition to some different law firms over the years, and always focused on the benefits issues. So that is why I'm here, and I'm delighted to see all of you. So
thank you. So now I'm going to turn the tables, and I'm going to ask each of you if you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves and talking about maybe what your background is and why you're interested in the MSL program at Wayne State. So Lynn, you happen to be first on my screen, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Hi, thanks. My name's Lynn Farthing. I'm over here in Chicago, but I'm an alum of Wayne State University. And as I was saying before, I love Wayne State University in Detroit. My background is historic preservation, buying, renovating, leasing buildings many years ago, and then I went back to school at Wayne State for disciplinary studies, nonprofit sector studies, and a year or so ago, finished a master's in real estate. But my interest now at 61 years old, I'm totally trying to get into working with the elderly population. And I, and so I'm just, I got a postgrad aging in place specialist through SUNY Stony Brook, New York during this pandemic, just so I could introduce myself to the language and sit with professionals and um, and learn about the networking. So I've been networking all over the country with different resources through webinars. And so anyway, I'm really interested in anything I can learn tonight about perhaps getting another master's degree in law school. Should have been on my radar screen and was some years ago.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Marilyn?
Well, good evening. I am Marilyn Murkison. I am the Associate Director here at Wayne State University in the Benefits Office. My background is I graduated from Wayne State. I'm an alum with a business degree majoring in accounting. I've worked for the accounting firm at the time. It was the Big Eight. It was Touche Ross at the time. It was Deloitte and Touche later on. So I've served as an external auditor and then as an internal auditor for Ameritech. I've also worked as a HR or AVP of human resources with a small firm, which was the Bain Group, a manufacturing firm in the human resources area. I then came over to Wayne State. I've been here at Wayne State for about 23 years now, working in the benefits department. I have made sure, because I actually have a love for not only the numbers, but then making sure that the business decisions that are made on behalf of the employees are not just all number driven, but they stay in compliance with what the law has indicated is necessary to be in compliance for certain benefits. And then to make sure that as we look at benefit designs and possibilities and the way our benefits are structured, to coordinate that activity between both the management group and any time that there may be some union contract negotiations that are in place relative to looking at benefits and then providing that information. So my love for people, for the city, for just fairness and equity within our environment, representing both employees and the management side of the operation is just, I know by enhancing my understanding of the law and compliance, that it only makes what we're delivering to our employees even better. And so that's why I'm all excited about the program and looking forward to an opportunity to enrich the existing skills that I have.
Thanks,
And
Marilyn.
that's me.
Appreciate that. Jennifer, you're up.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Guerra. I am, I actually graduated from Wayne State in 2015 with my business management degree. I've been in HR for 10 years now. I've been an HR manager for 3 years now. My boss actually told me about this program and I looked it up today and saw that this was going on. So I registered today. So
All
don't
right.
know. Yeah. So I was like, I don't know too much about it. So this was going to be great. I work for Evans Distribution. It's a third-party logistics company. We do warehousing, transportation, and staffing. I've been with them for 12 years. And then HR for 10 for them. And I'm just looking forward to learning as much as I can in HR. So I love it.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, I love the fact that we have Wayne State alum here. That is just great. And I think it just speaks to the quality of the institution itself and the love that people have for it. That's just great. And I know this, the other thing that I like is the longevity that all of you are bringing, that you've been, like Marilyn, you've been in, the field for 20 some years, and Jennifer for 10, and Lynn, you all as well have been in this year, in this field. And I think that probably collectively you can agree that it has changed over the time that you've been in there. And Marilyn's going, oh yeah, especially now, as we're in the middle of this pandemic. And I'm thinking very positive that we're going to be coming out of this soon, because I can't stay home with my dog every day anymore. So I need people interaction. But the people in human resources are more important than ever as we start to recover from COVID-19. And we're seeing where it has transformed the work environment. A lot of us are working remotely right now. And even as we come through this pandemic, now that we've proven that people can be productive and companies can continue on with business as usual in some sense, I would expect that, that will remain, right? That there will be opportunities for individuals to continue to work remotely. And so that adds a whole nother layer of things for HR individuals, right? Like, making sure that even if you're remote, that you're engaging those individuals, that they're feeling part of the team. And then there's also other things about working with finance, like, who pays for what when you work from home, who does the supplies, those kinds of things. And certainly one of the biggest things is, how do you confirm that the employee is doing the work that they're supposed to be doing, right? And that they're getting it done. It's going to affect talent acquisition and retention. It already has, so not knowing necessarily what the economic environment is going to be like. Many companies are turning to contract workers right now because of the uncertainty of what's going on. But also, if you are hiring employees, what does that look like now? What does your onboarding look like? Right? We're in a virtual world. It's not, in person any longer. How do you train that individual? And the other part is how do you retain the individuals that you have who are now remote? Again, it comes back to keeping them involved. And probably the biggest thing, and I'm sure Marilyn could share with us, or even Jennifer, accommodation, support, and compliance. There have been new regulations that have come out in regards to how we approach certain things because we're in COVID, and understanding those and knowing how to communicate them to the employee. So I don't anticipate that those will be going away anytime soon, and we may be seeing additional ones. So again, anybody who's in the role of human resources is going to play a critical role in helping organizations chart the way forward. And so for an individual who has knowledge of law in general, and then beyond that, how law intersects with human resources, is going to be a definite value added to their corporation or their organization. Okay, so why a Master of Studies at Wayne State University? Okay. First of all, it's an opportunity for you to learn the relevant law, the practical applications of law to human resource situations, best practices, and explore current topics. So later on, when we go through the curriculum of the program, there are specific concentration courses that you will take. But also keep in mind that as this program grows and we bring more students in, we will probably be adding courses to that list. For example, I know that our dean is very interested in potentially exploring a course that talks about crisis management. And so I think we'll have more special topics and things that you could choose from. Also, it's an opportunity for you to interact with expert faculty. which includes our full-time faculty members who will be teaching your core courses and experienced work law practitioners who are currently working in the field. It's also an opportunity for you to network and collaborate. Even though this is an online program, our intent is that you will still interact with your peers who are in other industries and different locations. And you can do that through classroom activities. We'll have some synchronous events where we can get everybody together. But also when it's safe to do so, we would love to be able to bring individuals to campus. Certainly it wouldn't be required, but to bring you to campus and immerse you in, the city of Detroit and what the law school has to offer. And I know, Lynn, you would be very excited about something like that, so we could get you back here in Detroit. The other thing is that because we're a 100% online program, you can study when it's convenient for you, and you can immediately apply the new skills and knowledge that you take from your courses to your job or your position. And last but certainly not least, as I mentioned earlier, this is a great opportunity for you to be able to differentiate yourself in a growing and competitive job market. The MSL program is a program that's set up for individuals who are already working in the HR field, or for individuals who are in a different field right now and want to break into HR. Any questions so far? No? Okay. So we'll just take a look at the program curriculum and the course information. I'm just going to go over it briefly, and then I'm going to go ahead and let Dean Cancelosi expand on some of our courses. But the program is 30 credit hours in total, and it's really broken into 3 different sections. The first section is our core courses, and this is meant to provide students with a foundation, a basic understanding of law in general. The way that I like to describe it is to think about topics that you may learn and cover in a first year of law school. We're going to give you the same breadth. So we're going to cover things from a 30,000 foot level, but what we won't do is go into as much depth as you would if you were like a first year law student. Okay, but we're going to give you the foundation. And then you'll move into taking your concentration courses that, in this case, because it's an HR focused concentration, will be focused in employment law, employment discrimination, benefits, dispute resolution, and again, maybe even some special topics courses, as I mentioned earlier. And last but certainly not least is our Capstone course, which is an opportunity for you to take everything that you've learned in the core and the concentration courses and bring it all into one. It's a paper that you will be working on with one of our faculty members. And, this is really kind of developing, and I think that it's broad enough that it could be anything, it could be a potential topic that you may want to write on. Perhaps it's a project that you're working on at work, and you're going to be talking about that project. And that's a 1 credit course. So again, that's just an opportunity for you to bring everything that you learned together. So I'm going to turn it over to Dean Cancelosi so she can expand more on those courses, because that is her area of expertise.
Well, so the first classes, the core classes, I think are probably fairly self-explanatory, right? I mean, working with lawyers is intended to pick up and cover a lot of the introductory things that people who are lawyers take for granted. Things like what is a case? How do you read a case? A bunch of those issues about what is the relationship between regulation and a case? Just all the kinds of things that it's in some ways intended to pick up relevant parts from what we would think of as legal research and writing. Some of those elements are also part of that. The survey of the common law is intended to give you an overview of the main common law as opposed to statutory law. So torts, contracts, and property to some degree, I believe. It kind of varies on what that is. Those are the ones that are the most relevant. Part of the reason we have it structured this way is so that these are going to give you a foundation that you'll find useful no matter what. Civil procedure and introduction to dispute resolution. Well, yeah, that's more or less what happens if you decide you have to sue somebody, and what are the ways you avoid suing somebody? Or, as I've always thought of the role of transactional lawyers in the kind of HR world that I always have lived in, you fail if you end up in court. So the name of the game is, how do you avoid that? Because that's what we don't want to have happen. And then, of course, government organization and regulation. I think certainly for those who've all worked in HR, we all know that it's remarkable how much of what we think of as all about people is in fact about complying with an innumerable set of constantly changing regulations. So it's intended to cover that, but also really give you from the lawyer side how it is you should approach those things, kind of the relationships, administrative law. There are a bunch of areas that kind of are all part of that. When you get past that, we have employment law could be one giant course, quite honestly, but if it were, it would be a really mammoth course you'd have to take in a certain order. So we tried to kind of break it up. That the first class is intended to really cover the things that are the legal aspects that follow an employee or a potential employee from the start of the work relationship. In other words, when you're sourcing talent, right? All those issues you have to face around just getting somebody in the door and hiring them and avoiding all the pitfalls and all the things that can go wrong. There's a lot of overlap with that and employment discrimination. Because in fact, the things you worry the most about in the hiring, other than the parts that are purely HR based, are really heavily, how do we not get ourselves sued because we did something that violated any of a wide array of federal laws that control this, and also state laws, sometimes even local regulation, depending on what it is. But to follow somebody in that color through then the work relationship, right? Hiring, management, and then, you know, what we don't like, the bad part, termination, if that ends up being the case. Some amount of issues that would come up with layoffs, reductions in force, but a lot of those are probably going to be pushed more into the world of labor law and practice, because that's probably the area that some of the most I guess the laws that would have the most effect are probably more under the labor law world. So what I'm thinking about for those of you in HR are things like Warren Act issues, right? And all of the RIF issues and all of the notices and the statutory requirements, and trying to deal with collective bargaining agreements and trying to work through that. The second employment law course is intended to be more of the kind of almost grab bag of all the statutory things. So things like FLSA, FMLA, a bunch of those in labor and employment kinds of rules that govern the workplace. It's that sort of the statutory stuff that pops up. Both of the Employment Law 1, Employment Law 2 are intended to be primarily focused on the non-unionized workforce, or non-unionized workplace, even though obviously there's a lot of overlap. And part of the goal is to make sure that we call out and say, okay, yeah, here's where if it's a CBA and there's one of those, then you're going to have a whole other set of issues you have to take into account. But they're intended to be primarily the non-unionized workplace. Employment discrimination, that would be EEOC, all the civil rights kinds of legislation, how those affect the workplace. Labor law is exactly what it sounds like. It's the collectively bargained, unionized workplace and all of those rules where, you know, it's interesting, people outside these kind of what we used to call the Rust Belt cities, but right, the old manufacturing based states. You know, labor law is less relevant depending on where you are in a lot of those states. It varies, but for certainly us here in Michigan, and actually it would apply in Ohio, Illinois, that Pennsylvania, we've still got a lot of these old manufacturing companies, and we've still got all of the labor laws that affect those workplaces. So that class is about that. And then employee benefits, well, that's my area. So I get very excited. I like my area of law. My colleagues always think I'm very strange, I will admit, or a little geeky. I'm never quite sure there, but that is retirement plans, right? Your 401k, your 403b, if you're in an educational institution, your pension plan, if you actually have a defined benefit pension plan, it's your health and welfare plan, so your medical insurance. It also encompasses things like your paid time off. So leave banks, leave policies, sick leave, all of those sorts of things. Vacation falls into here, short-term disability, long-term disability, life insurance, all is under that. To some degree, I hope, but of course, this class will be one that's a little bit farther down, so not quite fully designed out. I hope we get to talk about executive compensation a little bit there, because I think that's key, and I think it's important to know that, and the place that fits is really employee benefits, but it is to some degree its own unique world. And I see heads nodding because it is really such a unique, its own special animal. And then dispute resolution is actually, it's going to be the pieces of, it's first of all, a less credit class of all of these, but it is the parts of dispute resolution really from that first class, that's the core class, but then focused in on what's relevant in the employment context. So I would guess probably you all know that in the employment context, almost everything ends up being handled through arbitration nowadays. And a lot of that arbitration mediation, what are those things? And what are the other techniques and tools that people can use? But it's intended to be a little bit broader. So also talk about, it'll be in many ways, I think of it as building out what is going to be a fairly cursory approach to this in the core class, and then really focusing in on this is what's going to happen in the HR environment. And then of course, I think Nikki already adequately covered the capstone. So I think that's it. Nikki, I'm turning it back to you. Nikki, you're muted.
Thank you. Does anybody have questions specific to the classes that they'd like to ask Dean Canzalosi?
Susan, really fine.
Sorry, it's a habit for me.
This is, after all, a professional. I'm still not even sure with JD students. I am like incredibly strict that they cannot call me by my first name, because just take my word for it, bad idea, especially if you're a woman. You really don't want JD students thinking they can call you by your first name. But anyhow, it's a totally different world here. So Susan.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Susan?
Thank you.
No? Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, because the program is online, it is flexible, but it will still be very interactive. So each course is going to consist of a variety of different experiences that include different types of learning activities. Of the three of you, have you taken online courses before? Lynn has, yes. Marilyn, no. Jennifer, how about you?
I did, and I did not like it as much as a in-person class. So I don't know. This is where I'm kind of hesitant.
Okay. Well, and I think that, each experience can be different depending on, what was the subject matter, the faculty, what kind of activities they did. The majority of the program will be incorporating asynchronous activities. Those are activities that you can do normally at your own pace. Typically, there's a deadline that you need to have to do it by, but typically you can do it at your own pace. Asynchronous activities include items such as watching a mini lecture that the faculty has taped. Might take a topic and take 10 or 15 minutes to explain that topic. But we've come so far with technology that we can still make those mini lectures interactive. Right now we do a lot of interactive mini lectures where we add questions throughout the mini lecture. So it tests your knowledge as you go along and you listen to that lecture. There's also opportunities to participate in threaded discussions. So when I think about threaded discussions, I think about actually taking the conversation that you would have in the classroom and simply putting it into an online format. So for those of you who've never participated in an online discussion, oftentimes it starts with a post that has a particular question or theme to it, and faculty ask you to, post a response, your own response, and then maybe respond to your classmates' response. What I like about this is, in my personal experience, what I have found is that those conversations tend to be a lot more engaging and intriguing because, we're behind a keyboard. We're not necessarily sitting right next to each other. So, you may feel more comfortable being able to say something that you might not necessarily have felt comfortable saying in person. So it just, the conversations tend to be a little bit more engaging. And again, it's just like taking we could take this whole conversation that we're having here in a synchronous format and turn it asynchronous through a discussion thread. Very easy. And there's other activities too. There will be, short quizzes. There could be homework assignments, short writing assignments. And then what we are going to do too is we're going to be incorporating synchronous activities, which is an opportunity for you to come together as a class with your faculty member. So you can still have that classroom experience without necessarily physically being there. Now, what that will look like will depend on your faculty member. What we have asked them is that, when you do schedule synchronous sessions, we do ask that they do that in the evening because the majority of our students are full-time working individuals. And so they'll be working during the day. And so those activities would need to be in the evening. The other thing is that we're going to be using Canvas Learning Management System. And it's very similar. You might have used Blackboard before. They're very user-friendly, and we make sure that we give you training before you actually start the program. And Canvas is great because it also has a section where if you had any group projects where you can come together as a group and share ideas and discuss things as well and share documents and whatnot. In regards to the program, it is an academically rigorous program, and at minimum, we would anticipate that you would spend 6 to 10 hours a week per course. So just keep that in the back of your mind. And certainly, oftentimes too, I think it depends on the subject matter as to how many hours per week. I know myself, I'm not great at math, so any course that is quantitative in nature is probably going to be at the higher end for me, at 10 hours a week, whereas, a qualitative course would probably come, like maybe organizational behavior would be much easier for me to do and understand, and it might be, closer to the 6-hour mark. So the nice thing is that the program is flexible. Right now you can pursue it on a part-time basis. As we grow the program and we get more students, we'll be offering more courses, and that can be accelerated into pursuing the program on a full-time basis. When we talk about part-time, typically that's 2 classes per major semester. But the nice thing is that you don't have to take 2. If you feel more comfortable just taking 1, you can do that as well to get your feet wet, or maybe you want to take advantage of any tuition reimbursement you might be receiving from work. So, we're going to spread that out. I'll be working with you when you start the program. We will be developing it's called a plan of work, and it's another term for your path to graduation. And we'll be laying out what classes you'll take what semester. And we know that that's not going to be set in stone because things happen in life. And every semester I'll touch base with you. We'll see if things have changed in regards to your desire for how many classes you want to take. We'll take a look at the schedule to see if anything has changed. So we'll basically be working in partnership to make sure that we get you to the goal line. And you do have 6 years from the date that you start the program to finish all the requirements. So, Jennifer, any concerns about how I've kind of described the online course? Do you have any questions?
No, I think you described it pretty good.
Okay, all right. Anybody else have any questions? No? Okay. So let's talk about the admission standards. First and foremost, you have to meet the admission requirements for the Wayne State University Graduate School. In short, you are required to have a minimum GPA of a 2.75. If your undergraduate GPA was not a 2.75, I hope that you will not let that prohibit you from still pursuing the program, because I think we can all admit that sometimes in our undergraduate experience, we may have been finding ourselves or enjoying that freedom in the first couple of years. We also understand too that, after our undergraduate studies typically comes a time for some maturity, and you get some professional experience under your belt, or you go on to do some graduate level courses. So that's simply the minimum. And again, like I said, we like to look at things holistically. So we're not going to base a decision simply based on what your undergraduate performance was. You must have an undergraduate degree from an accredited college or university. Again, that's not only a requirement for the law school, but for the graduate school. And typically that's not normally an issue unless you studied overseas, and we're looking at equivalencies, like a 3-year bachelor versus a 4-year, those types of things. Again, just the undergraduate GPA to be considered for regular admission must be equal to or greater than a 2.75. Here's the good news is that the the MLS program, or MSL, I had it straight for the longest time, and I'm MLS, my brain must be on realty. But we do not require a standardized exam. Okay, so certainly you don't have to take the GRE, the GMAT, which is normally specific to business schools, and certainly the LSAT, which is meant for if you want to go into law school and become a practicing lawyer. We do look to see if you have any relevant professional work experience. It's preferred, but it's definitely not required. And when we talk about work experience, it can be someone who's had some entry-level jobs in the HR field, and they're using this degree program to, help them to advance to that next level. And the TOEFL score is just simply for our international students. Any questions about the admission standards? No? Okay. All right. So let's talk about if you're interested and you want to make application to the program. So in order to apply, there are several items that you need to submit through the Office of Graduate Admissions at Wayne State University. First of all, the online application for graduate admissions. Okay. It's very easy to use. Just make sure that when you're applying, that you apply to the MSL program and not the LLM program in labor and employment relations or law, because they're two separate programs. But if you happen to, don't worry, I will catch it and I will be contacting you. Typically, there's a $50 non-refundable application fee, but due to COVID, the graduate school has waived that application fee through fall of 2021. Okay. We do need official transcripts from all colleges and universities that you've attended. So if you went to community college before you transferred to a four-year institution for your bachelor's degree, we want those transcripts as well. And any graduate level work that you've done. You want to make sure that you have all those in. We ask for a statement of purpose. This is really the purpose for this is twofold. Number one is for you to share what your career goals are and how you feel obtaining the MSL degree will help you in reaching those goals. It's also an opportunity for you to share anything that you feel would be important for us to know. For example, as I mentioned earlier, sometimes, life is different as an undergraduate student for many reasons, right? And maybe there's a reason for it. Maybe you were a single parent and holding a full-time job down while obtaining your bachelor's degree on a part-time basis. That certainly can explain a lower than anticipated GPA. Or maybe there was a family member who needed to be taken care of for health reasons, and you are that care person. So if you feel comfortable and you'd like to share that information, the statement of purpose is where you'd want to do that. Current resume, again, we want to know what your professional experience is. You need at least one letter of recommendation. You can also do a second letter of recommendation if you'd like to. Keep in mind that they should be either from an academic reference. For me, that would be very difficult. I've been out of school for a while, so that's not going to happen. So I would rely on my professional contacts. So it could be a current supervisor, manager. It could be, a colleague that you work closely with, or, even I would say even someone, Jennifer, I'm thinking about you specifically. Potentially there's a vendor that you work with very closely and they can talk about, their experience with you. Keep those types of things in mind. And when I say professional in nature, I know it seems crazy that I have to say this, but you wouldn't believe me unless I showed you, but that does not mean your dentist or your doctor. Okay, it means someone that you've worked with on a professional basis. And then again, the TOEFL is just for our international students. So the nice thing is that you can apply to the program. You don't have to have everything all at once. I like to refer to it as piecemealing, although you're not really mailing anything. You can piece it together. So the first thing you need to do is make applications. So that gets you on my list so that I can start tracking with you and we can keep track of what's here and what's not in yet. And then you can slowly add to it. You can upload your statement of purpose. The nice thing is that the system is set up so if you know who your references are going to be, you would provide their contact information, which includes their email address, and then the system will reach out to them directly and say that you have ask them to submit a letter of support on your behalf. So it really takes care of everything.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
For the transcripts, since I went to Wayne State, do they automatically get to you or do I have to request them? And
no, that's great question, Jennifer, because that's going to affect all three of you. Once you indicate that you attended Wayne State, then that's a trigger for the admissions office in the graduate school to know that it's their responsibility to pull your transcript and make sure it gets attached to your application.
okay.
Now,
cool.
If you had other transcripts, like, let's say that Wayne State's where you got your 4-year degree, but you did do some community college work, obviously you would have submitted that as part of your undergraduate application. And we should have that on file. If we don't, they'll let you know. But that's a great question, Jennifer. Thanks for bringing that up.
Thank you.
The official deadline is November 15th, which I can't forget because that is my twin's birthday. And we've had a big countdown here. It was 4 days yesterday. Now it is 3 days. So it is on Sunday. However, we're willing to make some exceptions to that deadline on a case-by-case basis. So if you need, some extra time to be able to submit some items, especially for those of you who are with us tonight and are just learning more about the program and are maybe making that decision to apply, we can certainly make that exception. And if you don't apply for winter, then the next opportunity for you to apply would be next year in fall. So we'll be putting out information about that, and you'll be seeing an application deadline for that. The current cost for the program is $1,055.56 per credit hour. Keep in mind that that's simply the tuition rate, and there will be other fees that you'll need to pay. But and keep in mind also that it's a 30 credit hour program when you're trying to determine what the overall cost will be. And as you know, that's for an academic year. We kept our tuition rates the same in 2021 as we did for the former year because of COVID. I'm not sure what will happen next fall. Normally the Board of Governors meets over the summer and determines any increase to tuition. But I always tell individuals, if you're trying to estimate the full cost, you could always estimate a 3 to 5% tuition increase per academic year, and that should get you pretty close to what an overall cost would be. There are some funding opportunities available. We do have a merit scholarship right now that we're able to provide to individuals who apply and are admitted for the winter semester. We still have some of those available. So if you are able to apply for the winter, you will be considered for that scholarship money. There's also a graduate professional scholarship through the graduate school. If you're not familiar with it, I always like to call it our most valuable or our richest scholarship opportunity. It covers up to 10 credits per semester for a full academic year. So that's almost 3 credits per semester, which is really nice when you think about it. Not 3 credits, 3 classes per semester. So 3 in the fall, 3 in the winter, if you're able to take that many, but it's pretty lucrative. And the nice thing is that you can apply for it every year if you'd like to. But the deadline for that scholarship is March 1st, and everything is done through the graduate school. But I will make sure that all of our students who are current students or those who apply and want to be considered for fall are aware of the deadline, and they can submit their application items. There's also external funding and awards that are available. I'm going to be sending you a copy of this PowerPoint presentation so that you can go ahead and access these links. There are lots of awards that go unused because people aren't aware of them. And I know that donors would much rather be able to give those monies than not. So I always tell students that, if it says you have to live in a particular county and maybe you're close, go ahead. You never know. If you were the only one to apply, they may want to make sure that money gets used. So, just keep that in the back of your mind. And then certainly there's always federal student aid through FAFSA in the form of, loans from the government that you could also use to cover for the program costs. That is all that we have to share with you. So with that being said, I'd love to open the floor for any other questions that you have that we might not have answered.
Nikki, I have a question.
Yeah.
The program is a 30 credit program. On average, are most of the courses 2 to 3 credit hour courses?
So most of the courses are 3 credit hours, and I think we have 1 or 2 credits, and then the capstone is 1. Is that right, Susan?
Yeah, I would say the only class that's 2 credit is the dispute resolution for
Okay.
HR, the dispute resolution specialty course.
Yeah.
That one
So that
is
makes
2
sense.
credits.
So Marilyn, they would all be 3 credits with the exception of this dispute resolution, which is 2, and then the capstone, which is 1.
Okay. And then the books that are associated with the courses, are those generally just books online, or just the normal books that you would actually go through the bookstore to purchase?
That one's going to depend on the faculty teaching the class. What our faculty who are preparing classes for the inaugural semester are finding is that they're putting together a lot of their own materials because they want something that's more than and is above a level of an undergraduate class, but that's not a law school class, and trying to customize that. I think what you're going to see is a lot of customized course packs. But even if it is case books in some of the specialty classes, it could very well be a case book of some form. Those usually there are electronic versions available. It depends on the publisher, but most law publishers, legal textbook publishers, have both options. Depending on what the books are. Also, I'll just tell you as one thing to keep in mind that law students know, but other people don't necessarily, is always check Amazon.
Oh.
Because a lot of these books are a lot, depending on what it is, a lot of times books are very widely used across schools everywhere, and they don't get updated that often. And sometimes Amazon is just cheaper. So, which I probably shouldn't say with my administrator hat on. So my administrator hat was not on. I was a faculty member for that comment, but it's just worth knowing.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Jennifer.
I think what would intimidate me from this program is the fact that it's like a law. I have no idea what law students go through or anything about law. So I think I'm pretty confident in my HR skills, but I think that's the part where I'm like, oh my God, I don't know, will I do well in the core courses? I don't know.
Nikki, do you want to take it, or do you want me to?
Sure. Well, I want to share something with you just from a personal perspective, Jennifer, and then I'll let Susan go ahead and answer maybe from a more professional perspective. But, I think if you have the desire to learn about law, once you start learning about it, it's like wanting to learn even more. For my job, I sat in on one of our undergraduate courses, the Law and Harm course, which, introduced me to torts and property. And, I hadn't had any exposure outside of my business law class that was many moons ago. And it's just so interesting and enthralling. And I didn't have any experience before then, and I felt very comfortable in being able to pick up the concepts. And even now, I'm sitting in on a JD course, not for audit or for learning purposes, but to help the faculty member coordinate 76 online students. But while I'm there, I'm listening and I am picking up and learning, and it's just so intriguing. I would definitely encourage you to not let that intimidate you at all. And I think, the program is set up specifically for you for individuals who don't have exposure to law. That's why we want to make sure that we give you those core courses first, so that we're introducing you to those concepts.
If I may I share with Jennifer as another perhaps fellow student? Hi, Jennifer.
Hi.
I just finished what's called an aging in place specialist, which was through online postgrad. I sat with all these professionals in New York and who were out there for 20, 30 years in the field, and the professors. And I have to say that they just brought me into it. The language, the program was so well done as far as what we were interacting with, and I just kept shoving that language into myself. And by the third time through it, each of the when I was watching it, it was as if it was all connecting because it was so well done and it was so thrilling. And then also I just finished a year ago a master's in real estate, and my first class was real estate law. And having no law background, I wanted to go to law school after that class. It was so interesting because I could see the world that I'd been in real estate for a lot of my life, I could just see it sort of like connecting up. So I would say, with your background in HR, you would see the behind the scenes. It's like, the Wizard of Oz, where they tear the curtain down. And it's like, oh, that's what it was all based on. It's so exciting. I could just see it would be so exciting. But I don't have HR background. So, for me, it would be, again, just throwing myself in a big way. But anyway, so that's what I could say. Thanks.
No, thank you for sharing that, Lynn. I completely agree with you. It's interesting because, a lot of the terms and things you've probably already heard of just in general, like, when we think about false imprisonment or what constitutes battery. Like you're familiar with those terms, but now you actually, as Lynn said, you're pulling back that curtain like the Wizard of Oz and going, aha.
Yeah. All right. I feel better.
If I may also say, the thing about it is that people who go to law school, when they start law school, they don't know anything about law either. And the difference is that this is intended to focus not on turning you into a lawyer, much of which training is in part intended to train you to deal with a lot of the confrontation and analysis. And there's a certain set of things you learn in law school that are all about the profession of being a lawyer. But no one starts that way. And this isn't intended to do that. This is intended to help people who are interested in HR, or specifically those already in HR, get the insights of how the legal world that is impacting what you do day in and day out, that other side of it that you're just perhaps not as aware of, it's not supposed to be like law school. I mean, it's really intended and directed at people who are not lawyers and who, maybe get inspired to go to law school, but that's not the goal. The goal is to meet you where you are as an HR person, and to recognize that as an HR professional, for those people who do have the backgrounds that's, like, for example, some of you do, that to recognize that you will know more in some ways about the HR side than your faculty. What your faculty will know is the law side. And thus, it actually, we expect to be learning from you and then helping you see and bringing those connections together so that at the end of it, you're just a stronger person in HR.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Other questions that Susan and I could answer for you, or even the rest of us here that are here today that can offer some insight on?
I have a question about if there is a course during the summer. If the intent is that you would like to try to complete the program in 2 years, then I'm thinking that would be a matter of perhaps taking classes the entire year.
Mm-hmm. So great question, Marilyn. And it is our intent to be able to offer at least one class over the spring/summer term, including starting this spring.
Our expectation is that it will probably not be the core classes typically are offered in the summer, mainly because full-time faculty have research obligations, and that's what they're doing over that spring summer as they shift their focus more that way. And there'll be one of the more, for certainly next year, one of the specialty courses, and we're not completely sure which one just yet.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that clarification, Susan. That was a good one. Yeah, so it would be one of the specialty courses.
And I'd just like to share with Jennifer why I feel like this is an exciting program, because as being an HR professional that's been in the field for quite some time now, you get entrenched in a lot of the transactional type activity. But then as you elevate within your profession, there's more decision making that you are a part of. And I feel that the program itself will be a perfect complement to your decision making, because your decision making is not based on you making it within the vacuum, it gives you all the variables that you should be considering, as well as you become a part of that team that is making the higher level decisions within your organization. So it sounds really exciting to me relative to just enhancing the current skills that you have.
Thank you. Yeah, I think so too. I'm pretty excited now, so looking forward to this.
Very well said, Marilyn. Thank you. Absolutely. Mhm. Lynn,
And if I
how you
may
doing
just
over
share
there?
with everyone since, yeah. Hi, thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So because I did just finish this Aging in Place online my first time, and I'm not a techie person, I must tell you that we were all, when it was over, we started in February and we were done in August. And there was 3 different sections. We were, of course, happy to be done because none of us were young, but also we were so sad to say goodbye. You know, we were like this happy sad because it was just such a wonderful experience for all of us, even, you know, me who knew nothing. And it opened a new world to me. So I just want to share that. I'm just really sold now on online if the program's well done. Now
Yes.
and plus I went into it. I knew a professor, a friend of mine who teaches over at Tufts University in Boston, all over the world online for some years. So I kind of had the other side of it. It helped, but it was just a great experience. And I know Wayne State, I mean, whatever they're going to do, it's just going to be wonderful. So anyway, thanks everybody. And if I keep getting thrown off of here, but I really appreciate this. And
Thank you, Lynn. That was very kind of you. Thank you. I'll make sure to follow up with you so you get a copy of the slides as well. Any other questions we can answer for you ladies before we call it a night? No? If something does come up, you know, after we end tonight, you will have my information once I send these slides to you. Please do not hesitate to reach out so that we can answer any questions or help you with the application process, anything of that nature.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yes.
Thank
So
you
thank
all.
you, Lynn, Jennifer, and Marilyn. You guys were a great audience. Truly appreciated it. You know, it's part of why I love this job is I get to meet new people and I love developing those relationships. And I really hope to see all of you join this program and then to be there at the end when you're graduating. That's awesome.
Definitely. Thank you all so very much.
Yes. Okay.
thanks to everybody, and good luck, everybody.
You
Thanks.
too.
I will be calling you.
Sounds good, Lynn. Thank you. Bye,
Thank you.
Lynn. Bye, Marilyn. Bye, Jennifer.
Bye. Thank you for everything.
You're welcome.
Bye.